Welcome to MELfeed.video. We are commencing a live web stream service via youtube.com from Echuca, Australia. We currently conduct these streams on Monday evenings, with other times to be added as more opportunities arise. Please visit our website MELfeed.video for further information. This web video project presents old and new community TV programs. Please enjoy your stay with MELfeed.video.
Hello and welcome to NAT Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. Today our guest is Lyndell Kennedy, who is the Victorian President of Asperger's Victoria, and also she's an author and written a book about Asperger's. Welcome to the program, Lyndell.
Thank you, Mirella. It's nice to be here.
Thank you. And can you tell us, just to educate our viewers and everyone, what actually is Asperger's?
Well, Asperger's is part of the autism spectrum. It's a neurological difference in the brain that makes the acquisition of some skills harder and other things more easy. We often like to start off by what it's not. It's not a disease, it's not a disorder. Well, officially it is a disorder, but we don't like to think of it as a disorder. You can't catch it from another person and it won't kill you. It's that neurological difference, that wiring in the brain that makes social skills, usually social communication, quite difficult. People on the spectrum will often have sensory sensitivities, so they'll find bright lights very distracting. They might have very sensitive hearing, and they'll have usually a very passionate interest or obsessions in some areas and get very firmly attached to routines and rituals.
Okay. And how do people get Asperger's? Is it hereditary or is it something that just develops over time?
You usually are born with it. It's a genetic difference in the brain, so there has been a lot of research into the genetics of it, but we'll talk about that later, I think. But yeah, you're born with it. It's hereditary, so it often runs through families, and if it's not the parents, it might be a grandparent or an aunt or uncle that they'll find out are on the spectrum. And people are often diagnosed in later life if a child is diagnosed within the family, and then everybody starts saying, "Oh, but you're just like Uncle Johnny," or Grandma Jean's got a lot of those characteristics, and then another family member. Adults tend to be diagnosed as a result of a child in the family being diagnosed.
Okay. And what led you to become the president of Asperger's Victoria?
Oh, it was a bit of a long road. My son was diagnosed when he was 8 in grade 3, grade 4, and I knew nothing about it at the time, and went on to this massive journey of learning and reading and trying to work out what to do to help him. He was being bullied very badly at school when he was younger, and did have some of those sensory issues, and was finding school bells very distressing, and just noisy playgrounds and change rooms for sport were distressing for him. So he was hiding and trying to get away from certain situations. So we started seeing professionals, and you get bombarded with all this information, and you go and see psychologists and speech pathologists and occupational therapists, and there's just all this advice thrown at you. It gets very, very confusing. And then I found out about Asperger's Victoria. It was then called Asperger's Syndrome Support Network Victoria, and I started going along to those support groups, and it was just a revelation, the knowledge and the wisdom that the parents were sharing around the table as to how to make everything work together. So I went from being a participant in the groups to very quickly running one, because the leader who'd been running the group I was going to had decided to leave the group after doing it for a long time. So I became a support group leader, and then vice president and then president. So I've been involved in the group for about 8 years now. So.
Right. And what are some signals of someone who has Asperger's? What are some things to look out for? If someone, say, they're married to someone who's got Asperger's, they're not diagnosed yet, or they've got a child who's showing signs of it, what would they have to be looking out for?
With a kid, you might often see that the parents will be aware that the child's very bright, but they're struggling at school. They're struggling to complete work at school. The teacher might be saying that they're not hearing me in class. Is there something wrong with their hearing? A lot of kids go off and have auditory processing investigations, and we'll often find that there's an auditory processing issue in that the child's hearing is perfectly normal, but in a noisy classroom setting, they're just not picking up, they're not filtering out the teacher's words from all the background noise. So they might be referred off for help with that, or they just don't complete the work that's set to them. They'll be bullied. They're having troubles with friendships and social understandings at school. So that often leads kids to be flagged. I've got a bit of a theory that Asperger's and autism have always been around. People have always, on the spectrum, have always been around. But the classrooms in the 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s were very quiet places. The teacher spoke out the front. You sat up the back and wrote and memorised and regurgitated back in tests. It was all very individual learning. So classrooms used to be quite Aspie friendly. Aspie is the term that we like to use for people on the spectrum. Okay. Well, some people like it, some don't. But my family likes it. But now classrooms are very socially based, and kids tend to sit in groups of 4 or 6, and the learning's all socially based. So there's a much greater social demand in the classroom that can lead to a child getting overwhelmed and having difficulties with peers and getting upset and just finding the environment too stressful, and they might leave and leave the classroom without permission. So teachers will be flagging behaviour that's unexpected compared to the other children in the class, and that can often lead to people going off for a diagnosis.
And what are some other signs to look out for that someone's got Asperger's?
A strong preference for routine, for doing things the same way all the time. Passionate interests that just completely absorb you, and you forget to eat and forget to shower because you're just passionately interested in something. Obsessions is the medical term, but we prefer passionate interest at Asperger's Victoria. Yeah. So, yeah, difficulties with social communication, sensory issues, repetitive behaviours.
So there are some pros about it, like to have passionate interest and to be really focused on something is what geniuses are, really, aren't they? Yes.
A parent will come to one of our support groups and they'll be upset because their child's just been diagnosed and they think this is a life sentence. And we try to get them to say, what's your child interested in? What are they really good at? And focus on that, and all the therapies and the treatments that you might look at. Make sure that you always keep focusing on what the child's really good at, what they really enjoy, and access them that way. So if they're It was one time my son was having trouble learning times tables in grade 3 or something, but he was passionately interested in the Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And so we used the cards, we made up games to learn multiplication using these card games. So, but using his passionate interests, so that
so kind of tailor it to what they're passionate about, and then help develop whatever other skills they need to know through what they're passionate about. It's like sticking the vegetables in the spaghetti if the children don't want the
exactly. Blend it up and hide it in. That's right. Yes.
Well, that's beautiful. Then there's always a positive to everything, isn't there? So this is something really positive, to bring out the positive, focus on the positive, because they don't want to be felt like out, that they're left out in any way. So
and all the workshops and seminars and groups that we run at Asperger's Victoria, we try really hard to focus on the positives, and there's a way around every obstacle. I think it's just being creative in how you think about it and the problems. And as people on the spectrum get older and they move out of that classroom environment where they have to do something because everybody's doing it and it's on the curriculum and you've all got to learn it, you as an adult, you choose the environments you put yourself in, and you hopefully find you're able to manage your life so that you do find the places that you excel at and the things that you really enjoy, and find your people.
Beautiful. We're about to go to a break now. You're watching NAT Chat. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly.
Are you playing renovation roulette? I'm John Jarrett.
Now I know that deadly asbestos lies hidden in 1/3 of Aussie homes. It can be found in any home built or renovated before 1987.
Lurking in walls, under floor covering, behind tiles, in roofing. Asbestos. It was used everywhere.
So if you're a renovator or a tradie, you could be risking your life and the lives of others.
Remember, go slow. Asbestos, it's a no-go. Visit asbestosawareness.com.au to learn what you need to know.
Australian women need to kiss more. Watch out for persistent and unusual symptoms, as they could be a sign of ovarian cancer. Know the important signs and symptoms. Kiss. Look out for symptoms like abdominal or back pain, difficulty eating or feeling full quickly, or persistent bloating, or a change in toilet habits. If you're experiencing persistent and unusual symptoms for more than 14 days, see a GP. Make sure you kiss regularly.
Every minute.
Every hour.
Every mother and father.
Every sister and brother.
Every son and every daughter.
Everyone you see.
Everyone you cheer.
Everyone you watch.
And everyone you hear. Everyone you meet.
Everyone you know.
Everyone you love.
Everyone is affected.
Reach out and get connected.
Northern Access Television will turn 30 in 2020. We are planning a celebration night with a book and a special TV show about our history. If you're a past member or a volunteer of NAT, we would love to hear from you. For more details, visit the website nat30years.info and find out how you can help celebrate 30 years of media for the community. The 30th anniversary of Northern Access Television. Let's celebrate in 2020.
Hello and welcome back to NAT Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're here with Lindell Kennedy, who is the president of Asperger's Victoria. She's also written a book on Asperger's. Welcome to the program. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Can you tell us what help is there for people with Asperger's?
There's a lot of help. There's a lot of things that you can do to make a person's life easier. Dr. Asperger himself said that the cure for autism and Asperger's is understanding teachers, accommodating employers, supportive communities, and a parent's faith in the child's potential. So it's all about working out where that individual is at, what skills they need to develop to help them progress in their life, and then finding the right person to help with that. So it could be speech therapy to help with social thinking and non-verbal communication skills. It could be occupational therapy to help with sensory issues, sensory accommodations that the person might need if they've got very acute hearing or trouble regulating their body movements and keeping still in environments where they need to keep still. There's cute little things you can do for little kids in school where they have wedges that they sit on their seats to alter their angle in their seat and just make them use some of their energy in keeping their balance in a seat. Can help them stay in a seat longer if you need them to stay seated in the classroom. There's all sorts of things you can do.
And what about a spouse, like someone who's already an adult?
Mm-hmm.
How can the spouse help the other spouse who's got Asperger's?
Learning as much as you can about Asperger's and autism and what it means and how that different wiring in the brain can lead to different communication styles and communication misunderstandings. That's usually the main issue in long-term relationships and marriages, is that there's constant misunderstandings and a person's abrupt communicating style might be interpreted as being rude or uncaring, but it's just learning how to communicate in a way that works for both parties.
Right, yeah, because I was looking up the internet and it was saying there's some wives that were very angry and someone wrote up something about Asperger's and saying the husband was had Asperger's, and it was very, very difficult to live with, and the other person giving advice was saying, get out while you can, I can't get out of my relationship, kind of thing.
Well, that's awful. I mean, bad relationships happen everywhere, and it's not just Asperger's. It's not Asperger's that causes it. It's just the personality style, and perhaps those two people haven't learnt how to communicate with each other. And obviously, some people just aren't right for each other. But it's not because of Asperger's. Asperger's doesn't make you into a bad person, and I'd really hate for people to think that.
Get the wrong impression about it. And so it's basically do all the research you can on how to make a beautiful relationship work with someone with Asperger's.
Yes. It's all just about communication and learning how to understand each other's communication styles, and if the person's not looking you in the eye, it's not because they don't respect you, it's because they find the amount of information that's coming to them from your eyes can be overwhelming, so they look away so they can concentrate on what they want to say and concentrate on hearing you properly. And so it's not just jumping to conclusions that they're not looking at me, therefore they don't love me, therefore you're heading in the wrong direction if you start thinking that way.
Okay. And all this information, where would they find all this information on how to deal with it?
We would encourage people to come first of all to Asperger's Victoria. We run a lot of support groups and social groups for all parts of the families, so adults, young adults, women's groups, teenage children groups, boys and girls, siblings, parents, parents and carers and partners. We run groups for everybody in the Asperger's community. We like to think of it as a community, and our goal is to reach out to everyone in that community and provide information and support and that understanding environment so you can come and talk about your issues. So our partners group has been running for about 5 years, I think, and one woman was telling me recently that her husband wasn't actually officially diagnosed, but she thought he was on the spectrum, and he was maybe coming to that idea as well, but he wasn't happy that she was coming to the support groups until she explained it to him that she was going to learn how to be a better wife, and then he was very happy for her to be going to the groups, because some people could be worried that you're going to complain about me, but that's not the case at all. It's all about sharing stories, sharing strategies, and trying different ideas.
It's beautiful because they're just trying to find a way to keep these relationships going and keep harmony and
exactly.
taking it on themselves, so how they know how to deal with this person who they don't know how to deal with, I guess. That's wonderful, I think. And what other things do you run at the Asperger's Victoria?
Oh, we do. Well, the groups are the main thing. That's how we started nearly 25 years ago. We're celebrating our 25th birthday in February of next year. On Hans Asperger's birthday, or as close to it as we can manage. He was born in February. So we do support groups, social groups. We have a resource library, a website that has a lot of information on it. We do, Tamsin, our communications coordinator, produces a beautiful newsletter every quarter that's got a massive amount of information in it. We give, all our new members get an information kit that's 100 pages. It's a book that we produced that explains all different things about Asperger's, and there's chapters on education and workforce issues and all sorts of different things there. We have social media channels. We have Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. What else do we do? We offer a helpline for phone and email support. But the groups are really the main thing we do. And our evening seminars are a very big part. So we'll have hundreds of people come along to information seminars.
And what sort of, whereabouts are you situated?
Our head office is in Blackburn at the Nerve Centre, but we run groups at the moment in Ringwood, Carnegie, Reservoir, Glen Waverley. The boys group, the primary school age boys group, because they're active little kids, they go out to different places and go bowling and movies and do all sorts of park activities and farms and different things. So they move all around the eastern suburbs. But
and also it's important to educate people. Is someone with Asperger's a danger to other people? Because there's this link that we hear in the media, people with Asperger's, that person who did all these bad things, he had Asperger's. So can we just educate everybody?
Sure, we get very upset whenever we hear about it, particularly coming out of America, some mass shooting and the perpetrator's got Asperger's, that's why he did it, and that's just absolute rubbish. Statistically, a person on the spectrum is far more likely to be a victim of crime than the perpetrator. They're far more likely to be the victim of bullying in their younger years and even in the workforce than they ever are to be the perpetrator. It's a misunderstanding that because their face might not show emotions in the way a neurotypical person might, that there's the impression that they're cold and unfeeling, and that's completely not the truth at all. It's that they might not know how to express feelings, in that they're worried about expressing feelings in the wrong way. They're told off so often for doing the wrong thing, they become worried and anxious about doing the wrong thing, so they freeze in some situations and will be overcome with strong emotions and concern and love or worry about someone, but not know how to show it. And so it's the way to make life better for everybody is for us all to educate ourselves and learn how to make the most of every situation.
Beautiful. About to go to a break now. You're watching NAT Chat. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly.
Every new line means 2 more hands. Join us, lions.org.au.
Every time we buy certified organic, we're making a choice to help our environment and build a healthier community. But it can be hard to know that what we're buying is truly organic. The Australian Certified Organic logo is only given to products after a very rigorous process. So when you see this logo, it means you can trust that there are no genetically modified foods, no animal cruelty, and no harsh synthetic pesticides used. A healthier community is always better for our future. So the next time you shop, look for this logo.
Tick, 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 fashion.
Tick, 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 fun.
Tick, 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 food.
Tick, 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 festivals.
All make up 15 fabulous minutes.
In a half-hour special.
Presented to you by Jacqueline and Steve.
Every week. Time's up.
Hello and welcome back to NAT Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're with Lindell Kennedy, who is also an author of a book on Asperger's. She's also the president of Asperger's Victoria. Welcome back to the program, Lindell.
Thank you.
Can you tell us what are some positive things that people can do together with someone with Asperger's, like as a family unit? What sort of things can they do together?
Oh, it's all about finding a passionate interest that has activities that are around it, and then negotiating to take it in turns, perhaps on choosing activities for dates or outings. With our family, we always try to find activities, because I've got two children on the spectrum. My youngest daughter is also on the spectrum, and just finding outings that, it can be tricky finding something that everybody wants to do, but we try and take it in turns, and family holidays to destinations that might be a passionate interest. So at one point Lord of the Rings was very popular in our house, so we were lucky enough to go to New Zealand and travel around in a motorhome and visiting all of the Lord of the Rings sites, and I can't remember the name of the place in Wellington, that Weka or something, where they made all the models and things. So lots of, it's just finding the interests, and then an activity around that will be enjoyable, but managing the time as well. So agreeing on a time and a duration that suits everyone, and keeping to that can be really important as well.
Okay. And what are some research that's been done in the past, and what's some research that's been done now?
In the past, the research tended to focus a lot just on the genetics, on finding the particular genes that set off autism, and working out if you can stop that. But that's got a lot of adults on the spectrum very upset about you trying to get rid of autism. And you know, it might be true that some researchers are trying to find a cure for autism, but that way of thinking then negates the value of people on the spectrum, and the importance of all the things that they've done for our society. You know, so many of our great scientific and artistic and intellectual advances in knowledge have been done by people on the spectrum, because they've got that passionate interest, that ability to focus at intense levels for very long periods of time, and not be distracted by all the social stuff and the water cooler gossip, for example. So now there's more research moving into adult issues, quality of life issues. I've got a list here actually, because just on our website alone, researchers come to us every week saying they've got a new research study and could we help them find participants. So we advertise all the university, the reputable research that's going on, and we've got we've got about 40 different projects listed on our website at the moment, and just some of those topics, apologies for reading, but what things that they're looking at now are, sorry, I'm at the right page, pet therapy, video-based instruction, sleep studies is always a popular one. There's one on post-school pathways, mental health for mothers, impacts on parenting. There's still some research that's focused on genes, and developing a biobank, so that researchers, when they're wanting to look at genetic stuff, have this bank of material that they can go to. There's a longitudinal study on school leavers and what has made them successful, what's helped them find success in post-school pathways. intimate relationships, personality traits, facial expressions, eye tracking, successful employment, internet addiction, another popular one, ease of access to interventions, educational needs analysis, and a sibling study. They're just some of the studies that we've got on our website at the moment that's being done all around Australia and also internationally.
Okay, so this is the current research there.
They're the current projects that are advertised on our website, that if people are interested in helping further scientific knowledge, and a number of them also offer small rewards. They can't pay you for participation, but they might give you a movie voucher or a gift voucher or a chance to win some prize or something.
And can you tell us a little bit about the book that you've written?
Well, when my family first learned about Asperger's, I found it very hard to find Australian-based information. There was books on English situations and American families, but the American and English medical and school systems are very different to ours. Yeah. So I was doing hours and hours of research. I was talking to as many people as I could. I learnt so much from the support groups that Asperger's Victoria was running that I thought, well, what about people who can't get to support groups, or people who don't like the concept of support groups, because there are some of those around, hard to believe. So I thought, well, all this information needs to be in one place. So I thought, well, I'll need to write a book about it, because I'm an author and I work in that industry. But I was wary of telling too much of my family's story. I didn't want to air our dirty laundry, and I didn't want much shared their stories in the book. And I was originally just going to do one book, but I collected so much material that it looks like it's going to be a trilogy. I'm working on the second one now. So the first one's The Hidden Diffability, Asperger's at School, and the first one's Discovering Asperger's, and the second one will be Asperger's at School.
So this book is, what's this book called?
This one here. The Hidden Diffability, hard to spell. The booksellers don't like me for the double F because it sounds like an S, but I didn't want disability on there. So my son and I came up with that title, The Hidden Diffability and Discovering Asperger's, because this is the beginning of the journey, what to do when you're first diagnosed, and what therapies are available, and the funding, which is very important. But,
okay, and is there much funding for Asperger's?
It's difficult, depends on the age of the person when they're diagnosed. At the moment, in 2008, the Rudd government brought in the Helping Children with Autism package, which provides $12,000 for children up till the age of 7. So they have to be diagnosed before their 6th birthday and access the funding before their 7th birthday. So it's all designed to help families access early intervention, because that shows that children have the best chances of reaching their potential if they're diagnosed early and taught the social skills that they need to thrive in a school environment early. For children over the age of if you're diagnosed after the age of 6 but before the age of 13, there's a second part of the Helping Children with Autism, which gives you 20 Medicare funded sessions, so rebates basically, to use for speech pathology, occupational therapy, psychology. There's a mental health care plan. There are a few things, but as you get older, there's less available.
And with Asperger's Victoria, are they in need of funding?
Oh gosh, that's a very good question. We're desperately in need of funding. We are completely self-funded. In the last 2 years, we've managed to get $2,000 worth of grants, which doesn't even pay for rent. We've grown considerably since we started with just 5 families meeting in a suburban lounge room. We now have, in the last financial year, we have 14 groups running monthly, over 160 events. 3,500 people physically came to one of our events or groups in the last financial year, and we're doing everything is provided by volunteers. Some of us are working almost full time to provide all the services that we provide. So we're desperately seeking funding. We've got donation options on our website, and we're pestering all the politicians that we can get an interview with to try and get some help there.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the program.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me. It's been great.
You've been watching Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. I hope you enjoyed the program with our guest Lyndell Kennedy from Asperger's Victoria. See you again soon.
We want to show you what's dangerous about this river, but we can't. That's the problem. You can't see ice-cold water, snags like tree branches or strong currents. So in enjoying our rivers, remember, wear a life jacket, avoid alcohol around water, never swim alone, and learn how to save a life. Our rivers are beautiful, but more Australians drown here than anywhere else. It's simple. Respect the river. Head to royallifesaving.com.au/respect the river for more information.
Live streamed from Echuca each week, this is MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV.
Hello and welcome to NAT Chat. Today our guest is Tamsin Jowett, who is the Vice President of Asperger's Victoria, and I'm Mirella Rich. Welcome to the program, Tamsin.
Thank you, Mirella.
We've recently had on the President of Asperger's Victoria, Lindell. Yeah.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you became the Vice President of Asperger's Victoria and what Asperger's is, just to refresh people's memory?
My journey started with my son being diagnosed after years of wondering what was going on. And I was looking for sources of information and found Asperger's Victoria, and they supported me and helped me and through that initial stage. And then I was drawn into the team because they're so passionate about Asperger's, and take it from there. And so on Asperger's is a neurological difference in people, and it affects their ability to understand social cues.
Right. And so how does someone help someone with Asperger's in those situations when they can't, what are some positive things that they can do to help the person with Asperger's?
It's really the main thing to do if you're in my situation as a parent is to find out as much information about Asperger's as you can and research all the options, get lots of advice from all the professionals to help you, get your school involved, and there's a lot of support available out there if you're going through the situation I went through.
And is there something that the loved ones can do as a family together with the person with Asperger's, or a spouse can do with someone with Asperger's?
Really, it's finding out information and support. If you find out information, you help the siblings learn as a family, or if you're the spouse, research the information, and then you'll find ways that you can help your spouse and manage the relationship in a better way, so that you can manage the quirks of Asperger's and find the positives in your relationship.
And is there any research done on healthy diet with the person with Asperger's? Any particular diet they can follow that actually helps them with it?
There's no actual sort of conclusive research about diet, but there's quite a lot of information out there about various diets that can help, such as the gluten-free, casein-free diet some people follow. You can have an additive-free diet, which just is healthy generally for people. And there's other sort of natural options that can help behaviours, but there's nothing that actually has shown that it conclusively helps Asperger's.
Okay. And given your experience, can you, maybe there might be another mother watching the show, is there some tips you can give her or father who's watching the show, or someone else who has someone with Asperger's, how you dealt with it and how you were in the beginning, and then how you progressed through it, because they might be just wanting to know?
I think it's being open to learning and learning as you go along the journey, because the information you need changes. Make sure that your son or daughter or spouse knows that you still love them, and there's no compromise in how much you love them. In fact, you love them more than ever because you're helping them through this diagnosis, if it is that stage. Generally, being very supportive is just so important, and finding out as much as you can to help them with their various sensory issues or social issues, just being there for them as much as possible. And I highly recommend going to Asperger's Victoria, the support groups.
The support groups there.
And talking and sharing your experience so that you get the support yourself.
Right. And do people go to the Asperger's support groups even if they're living with someone who is not diagnosed with Asperger's but they seem to have the symptoms but the person's too afraid to get diagnosed?
Oh, definitely. There's people there just getting support for how they'll manage that person, and we're quite experienced with that sort of situation.
Right. And there are some basic tips that you follow, like some just quick, easy tips that you follow and that you can give our viewers on how to help someone with Asperger's?
There are tips. We have a lot of information. We also have a lot of books in our library. Also on our website, there's also a wealth of information about tips on how to live with Asperger's, being someone with Asperger's, or being the partner of someone with Asperger's, or being the parent of someone with Asperger's.
So there are some signs where they may not seem compassionate. How would you deal? We'll just nut through a few of them. How would you deal with that when you're talking to this person with Asperger's and they're not acting in a normal, compassionate way? What would be your reaction now that you know?
Well, you just need to be understanding and not judgmental is the main thing, and understand that they're not doing it intentionally. That is how the person is, and you can help them develop an awareness if they're willing to understand a bit more about their lack of understanding.
And have you seen progress in that, where they actually start to become more compassionate when because of the neurological effects they weren't compassionate?
Usually people with Asperger's have quite a good level of intelligence and they can learn so much, including the social behaviours. There's some very good techniques out there such as social thinking. There's activities speech therapists can provide, OTs, which will open up their world so that they can learn how to manage these environments which they find difficult.
And in your experience, what sort of process did you go through?
I went through all sorts of specialists and tried them out and found the ones that my son liked and the ones my son didn't like. And I have to be guided by him as to what he needs and what helps him. And as he gets older, he's more aware of what helps him and how to manage his own deficits. And also, he's also discovered his talents. So a lot of people with Asperger's will have talents of some sort or really good abilities, and you really need to focus on their strengths. And so they're aware of their strengths more than their weaknesses, holding them back.
Right. And how would you say your own child has progressed now since you've done your own research on Asperger's?
Well, he's in a mainstream school. He's got friends. He's happy. I think that's really what any parent wants with their child, but it is a journey and we'll see what comes up along the way.
All right, we're about to go to a break now. You're watching NAT Chat. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly.
If a man's home is his castle, his shed is his kingdom. It's a place men can hang out with a few mates, build a few things, even if you haven't before, and give back to the community. No man should be without a shed. The Australian Men's Shed Association is working to provide a shed for all Australian men, and they have over 400 already. Visit your local shed, build your community, and make a difference. Find a shed near you. It's time to give back.
You're there when they can't sleep. You're there when they forget. But who's there when they're at school? Asthma can be serious. It affects 1 in 10 Australians and claims 400 lives each year. Does anyone at your school know what to do in an asthma emergency? Log on to asthmafriendlyschools.org.au and find out if your school is asthma friendly. Shouldn't every school be asthma friendly?
Two out of 3 toddler pool drownings are caused by open or faulty pool gates. Water, it's only safe while you're watching. Keep watch.
and welcome to NAT Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're here with Tamsin Jowett, who is the Vice President of Asperger's Victoria. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Mirella.
Now, can you tell us some positives of someone having Asperger's?
Asperger's has quite a few benefits that would be good to talk about, including their attention to detail. So people with Asperger's will notice all sorts of things that a normal person wouldn't notice, that it being neurotypical is how we describe it. They will also be very focused on their passionate interests. So they can filter out distractions and work on that passionate interest for hours, which is where you get fantastic scientific discoveries. And people like Einstein, who we suspect might have been an Aspie, as we call them. They also are amazingly honest and very loyal friends generally, because they like rules and that works to their advantage for those sorts of aspects in their life. They have an unusual intelligence often, in that they won't accept what people will say is the norm. They'll think beyond that. Their minds work in a different way to ours, which is just wonderful. I find that the thinking is very entertaining. Sometimes at dinner I'll get my son, when he was younger, asking a question about something to do with the planets and why they aren't aligned, and suddenly you think, I have to go and find that out. And so they teach you quite a lot, wow. I find, as you go along.
Right. And what's this brochure you have here on Asperger's?
This is about Asperger's Victoria, and it gives an outline about what Asperger's is and also what Asperger's Victoria does as an organisation. We're totally volunteer run and we have minimal government funding. We only had $2,000 government funding last year, which doesn't even pay a part of our rent. But we have a wonderful group of volunteers who are all very passionate about Asperger's. Some of them have Asperger's, some of them are parents, some of them are carers. So quite a wide community, and we welcome new volunteers to come along and help us. We do give training to our volunteers, so if they're running support groups, they get training to help manage a group. And we've found that some of our volunteers, through volunteering with Asperger's Victoria, have gone on to get a job because they had volunteering with us on their CV. Right. So it's wonderful. We're really excited about that for them.
And did they have Asperger's as well, the volunteers?
Yes.
Okay, so it's opened them a new avenue of opportunity for
Yes, them. They can develop new skills, really. And also it's building the confidence with a group of very supportive people at Asperger's Victoria. And they're building their networks and friendship circles and a lot more for... Right. Yeah,
and I've read as well that people with Asperger's don't often look at people in the eye. What's the meaning behind that?
Talking to my son about it, he finds it very difficult looking people in the eye as well as listening. And he says there's so much information in a person's face while he's trying to process what they're saying. So he finds it better to look down and just focus on the listening aspect of the communication so that he gets that right. So it's a selective way of trying to understand the communication.
It's very interesting because that could be really badly misinterpreted, because people might, have people say if you can't look at someone in the eye, you can't be trusted.
Exactly.
So that's a bit of a bit difficult.
And Jack's tried, he does practice it. He tries to work out how to manage that, so he will glance up and work out ways so that he can see that people still trust him. Yeah. That's very important.
So I suppose they have to learn tricks on it, like just say, don't look at, pretend they've got like a smiley face in the middle of their forehead or something.
Yeah. Look at their nose.
Yeah, look at their nose and pretend there's a bee there or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Little tricks. So it's like that, isn't it? You've got to teach these social skills, but make it so that it's, exciting or fun for them. Be creative with it.
Yeah, and also in a way that's understandable to them. So if you use things like their passionate interests, that will help them learn. If in classrooms, if you can do something on trains, then you'll find the child with Asperger's who loves trains will be so involved in that subject. So teachers can use it, that sort of passionate interest, parents, and also spouses if you
And do you know much about the person Asperger's who actually discovered Asperger's? Do you know much about him and how he came to discover Asperger's?
He was a scientist in Germany, and it was around the time of the Nazis. And there is speculation that he might have had Asperger's himself, and he realised that there were kids that had similar characteristics to himself and had struggled with social communication. So he started to study that. But interestingly, at around the same time, there was another scientist in America who was also studying Asperger's, and in the end their research ended up being pulled when one of the assistants went from Germany across to America. So there's a whole new book about that.
Right, okay. And also, we were talking off camera, Asperger's is not, it's not a fault, it's a difference. Can we talk about that?
It does get classified as a disability, which is a card that can be played if the person needs to, but really it's just a different neurological way of thinking. And with Asperger's, it's part of the autism spectrum of disorders, and we sort of say there's a spectrum that goes from one end to the other, and you'll find that the neurotypical person is there on the spectrum and Asperger's is somewhere in here, but everyone with Asperger's is different, so have different capabilities. And then it goes through to other various parts of the autism spectrum.
So with Asperger's, it's not just, they're not all alike, everyone's not all alike.
I think there's a saying that if you've met one person with Asperger's, you've met one person with Asperger's. There is some similarities, but each one of them is quite different and has different strengths and different weaknesses.
So, I mean, of course, we're all individual people. I mean, no one on earth is perfect anyway. Everyone's got their little whatever.
Exactly.
So I guess the message is just trying to accommodate and try and be understanding and caring towards one another, whatever you've got, really.
Yeah, and really supporting them in their strengths and just help them overcome their weaknesses. And really, as a carer or parent or any sort of supporter, just being there for them, loving them no matter what, is what you really have to do.
Beautiful. About to go to a break now. Okay. You've been watching NAT Chat. We're about to go to a break. We'll see you again shortly.
Every time you shop, the choices you make affect our community. It is important to select Australian products made by Aussie-owned companies. Our food security means quality and peace of mind. Your purchasing power keeps your dollars multiplying in our economy, keeping jobs, profits and decisions being made right here, which is better for your children.
So the next time you buy, look for the AusBuy logo. It makes all the difference.
We always liked to play chess together ever since we were little. He was always a better player than me. When I was diagnosed with Pompei's disease in 2002, I was told that my life expectancy was going to be poor, and my condition deteriorated rapidly before I was able to start treatment. My brother and I both suffered from the disease. But now I consider myself the fortunate one. My brother spent the last 2 years of his life in hospital. He didn't have access to this wonderful treatment that should be available to everybody. The world just keeps getting smaller as you progressively lose the ability to walk. So your world shrinks, and then gradually you realise, I haven't been to the supermarket in 6 months. I'm 59 now, and every year I can see my daughter grow up is a blessing. I believe my treatment's made this possible.
To learn more and help those living with Pompei's disease, register at australianpompeii.com.
I was in my 40s when I was first diagnosed with bowel cancer. George, my son, was 6 years old at that time. These days, like people of his age, he's very busy, but he still needs to find the time to get to know his bowel cancer risk. Is that right, George?
Yes, Dad. Bowel cancer affects 1 in 12 Australians, young and old, and is our second biggest cancer killer. But if caught early, bowel cancer is treatable and beatable. My dad is living proof of that. So get to know your bowel cancer risk. Talk to your pharmacist or GP about screening. Protect yourself and the ones you love. Go to lovemyfamily.org.au.
Hello and welcome back to NAT Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're here with Tamsin Jowett, who's the Vice President of Asperger's Victoria. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Mirella.
Can you tell us about your role as Vice President and also Communications Coordinator of Asperger's Victoria?
Well, that means that I sit on the board and am involved in all the management decisions. But in my role as Communications Coordinator, I've set up and manage the Facebook site, which has all sorts of relevant information for people with Asperger's, autism in general. We also have a LinkedIn site, and I manage the newsletter, the quarterly newsletter, which comes out with all sorts of information, the latest about Asperger's, where the events are happening, new research, and also events we're running at Asperger's Victoria, which every quarter we run quite a few events. So, which are on the sort of the latest topics for members.
And you do that how often does the newsletter come out?
Every quarter.
Right,
so we basically run it with the seasons, which works quite well.
Right.
So, and it's usually at least sort of 20 to 30 pages long. It's quite a lot of information.
Gee.
It's a matter of what not to put in rather than what to put in, because there's always so much new information coming out.
And what do you find as a communications coordinator in helping people with Asperger's? For myself, I usually research things for my son or my family or other things I hear about, and really it's just feeding that through into the communications that are going out for Asperger's Victoria, which I always think I'd like to share, just, because it might be someone out there who will find that really helpful. Yeah.
And I think that's the role of a lot of our volunteers. It's sharing and hoping in some way we can make a difference in someone else's life out there.
And what subjects do you cover in seminars and workshops?
We do a careers workshop, which is very popular. We recently did a workshop on video modelling, which was got a very good response. We will cover sort of topics that members tell us they're interested in and want to know more. So we'll find a very good speaker and organise them to come along for a night, and all the members will come along. We'll get sometimes over 100. Once a year we get Tony Atwood to come down from Queensland to talk, and he's always very interesting. So we'll get sort of 300 people come along to those talks.
Okay, can you tell us about Tony Atwood?
Tony Atwood is one of the main psychologists who specialises in Asperger's and the spectrum, and he's very interesting in his views. He's one of the very early ones who spoke about the positives of Asperger's and not talking about the deficits, really, how much Asperger's is something that is a positive for the individual, and how the individual can really make the most of their life with Asperger's.
And does it ever happen that parents or spouses become depleted because they feel like they're always accommodating the person with Asperger's, and how would they deal with that situation?
Oh, definitely. It is quite hard on the family, especially in the early stages, or whether you're family or you're a spouse of someone with Asperger's. But really it's educating yourself and working out how to manage the various behaviours that are causing issues in the family. And that also educating any siblings, so they understand maybe it's not intentional, and how to manage any triggers that they might be causing in the Asperger child or sibling with Asperger's. And once they understand that, then things can get a lot smoother in a household. But then you still get situations where parents can't agree on parenting, or you just have to realise that manage the best way forward that you can in that situation.
And so what do parents do in that situation to get help? Is there like a group or something that can help the parents?
Yes, they're a group. We've got groups for partners, parents, carers, who come along and share what is troubling them, and they'll often find someone else in the group at Asperger's Victoria's has been through that and has something to share that will really help them. Then also there's psychologists that we can recommend who will help them with specific aspects, or speech therapists. There is help on hand.
Right. And what was it that made you so passionate about getting so involved that you became the Vice President?
I think it was going through the whole experience of the diagnosis, and it is quite a confronting thing to go through. But then at that stage, we'd already been through quite a troubled period, because it was arrive at school, and every time you arrive, the parents, the teacher's standing there waiting to talk to you about some behaviour that's happened that day. But the teacher just didn't understand my child and didn't understand the behaviour. So once we worked out what was going on, we can then tell the teachers what was going on. And I just found when I got to the support group and other people said, I've been through that, this is what we did, and maybe you need to change schools, or maybe, tell the teacher this, or there's this tip sheet on the website of Asperger's Victoria. It sort of opens up a whole lot of other options. You feel like there is a way out, there is a way through this.
And what about the before and after? Have you noticed much changes in people who have had Asperger's and gotten some kind of help? It's usually communication skills, isn't it?
It is.
It's nothing. It's not medication, is it?
No, not at all. It's really teaching them the behaviours and learning, giving them confidence in their strengths. And then, as Tony Atwood was talking about in his recent talk for Asperger's Victoria, that some people with Asperger's can almost become subclinical because they're coping so well, and they're fitting into their environment, they're fitting in socially, that really most people wouldn't even know they had Asperger's, but they do have their special mind still, but they've learnt ways to sort of manage their life and be happy.
Right. And I guess there must be ways as well, like maybe someone has Asperger's and the parents or the spouse doesn't know, or they're not even diagnosed, and they're thinking, why is that person being so rude? Why are they ignoring me? Why are they being, this sort of way? What can they do in that situation if they don't know?
The person themselves doesn't know.
Yeah.
It's a tricky situation. So if you were related to that person, you knew something about Asperger's, you might want to try and find out information, ways that you can help them understand why they're behaving that way. But sometimes some people don't want to change, so there is that aspect as well, especially people who've had Asperger's all their life and they don't believe they should. But then we have had cases of people who are in their 80s who realise that they've had Asperger's all their life, and this is why they've had difficulties in certain ways, and they will go and learn the social behaviours and realise after all those years life could have been a bit easier.
Wow, isn't that amazing?
It's great.
That's beautiful, the human spirit, isn't it?
Yeah,
even
absolutely.
At 80,
even at 80.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me, Mirella. It's great.
Great. You've been watching NAT Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. I hope you enjoyed the program. See you again soon.
If you choose to drive on drugs,
you could ruin lives.
Someone else's, your family's, or your own.
Choose not to instead.
The right choice could save someone's life.
Proud supporters of safety in our community.
GMCU and Southern Cross Austereo.
Performance poetry comes your way with Red Lobster every Monday night at 9:30. Live streamed from Echuca each week, this is MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV.
Alleluia. Om Mani Padme Om. Allah.
Welcome. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and today we're speaking with Anna Hellefoff, and she's a lecturer in the sociology of religion at Deakin University, and she also operates as an advisor, an academic advisor, to the Faith Community Council of Victoria. Thanks for coming, Anna.
Thank you.
There's a little bit of an issue in society at the moment here in Australia in relation to religion in schools, the teaching of religion in schools. I believe you've been doing quite a bit of research in relation to that. What's that look like?
It's a very good question. So I think a lot of my research is focused on the challenges and also the benefits of increasingly religiously diverse societies. So if you look at a society like Australia, which initially had, of course, a rich Australian Indigenous history, and then became a more majority Christian country, from the 1960s onwards, you can see that it has also become an increasingly religiously diverse society, and more recently still, an increasingly non-religious society. So a lot of my work looks at how do we as Australians, but also how do state actors in Australia and peak community groups in Australia adjust to this new religious diversity, religious and non-religious diversity. And I think the issue of education and religion in education becomes a real hotspot within the discussion of this increased diversity. And what we have is a situation in Australia where the way religion is taught, or in some cases not taught in schools, doesn't really match the reality of our current society, of the current religious composition of our society.
Yes, because at the outset, Australia was divided into two camps of the Catholics and the Protestant. It was quite clear that that was the case. But as it's evolved, what does SRI, what does that stand for? What does it do?
Okay, so SRI is the term that we use in Victoria for special religious instruction.
Yes.
And basically the situation of the way religion is taught in schools is very different in every state. My research is primarily on Victoria, and that's what really I will concentrate on today. So in New South Wales, for example, it's known as SRE, Special Religious Education.
Okay.
So SRI is Special Religious Instruction. Now, special religious instruction was first introduced into Victorian schools officially in 1950. Okay. When the schools were first set up at the turn of the 20th century, they were set up as secular spaces, and they were set up as secular non-religious spaces. So the teaching about religion was forbidden within the official 4-hour school day. Yep. So there was no Christian religious education in Australian schools initially, as there was in other countries, let's say, like the UK. By 1950, what was allowed was half an hour of religious instruction, but not by teachers, but by volunteers from religious groups. Now, in 1950, what was allowed was Christian religious instruction and also Jewish religious instruction. So we already kind of had a multi-faith model in the beginning, which is quite different to other societies.
So that's in the 50s. So that was in the days of the Protestant, Catholic, and obviously Jewish influences there.
Yes.
When did the real influence of the other religions coming in, when did that really impact in Australia? Was there a gradation in that?
Yeah. So I guess you can see that when the White Australia policy was abolished, Australia became a more increasingly culturally and also religiously diverse nation. Right. So particularly at the end of the 20th century, you can see that occurring. Now, special religious instruction, interestingly, was reviewed in Australia in the 70s, and there was a report published called the Russell Report, which looked at this changing religious diversity in Australia, but also looked at what was happening in religious education in other parts of the world. So in the UK and also in Scandinavian countries. So the Russell Report back then recommended changes to SRI and recommended a shift away from religious instruction to a broader world religions education model that could be taught by qualified teachers within schools. Right. This actually occurred in the UK and in some Scandinavian countries around that time. Now, the recommendations of the Russell Report, however, were not taken up in Victoria. And I would say that largely because at that time we didn't really have an active interfaith movement. We really didn't have an active force of diverse religious communities lobbying for these changes. By the time we get an active interfaith movement in Australia, and particularly in Victoria, it's in the 1990s. Yeah. So after there was a big interfaith event that took place in Melbourne in 1989, and after that we have quite a significant rise in interfaith activities. Yeah. Now, the so-called minority faith groups, so the Buddhists, the Hindus, Muslims, Baha'is, they then started to become more interested in the issue of religion in schools. But what they did, rather than campaign for a change away from religious instruction to general religions education, what they campaigned for was instead also to be able to teach SRI as volunteers alongside the Christians and the Jewish groups. So what we have in the 90s in Victoria is many different faiths being able to teach SRI, and that situation remains to today.
And that was a good point, because that's where we have to take a break.
Okay.
We'll be back in a moment.
Hush, little baby, don't you cry. Daddy's gonna sing you a lullaby. When you're sleeping safe and sound, you've got the proudest dad in town. I remember when I first saw you, your heart beating as you grew. We'll read you stories to help you dream. Your mommy and I are a perfect team. I can't wait to hear you sing, or watch as you put on a wedding ring. One day you'll have children too. Remember the times I sang to you.
Hi, I'm Lane Beachley. Australians have recycled enough printer cartridges to cover Bondi Beach 12 times. That's kept 11,000 tonnes of valuable resources out of landfill. Drop your used original cartridges into the special boxes at participating retail outlets, and they'll be turned into new products, from pens to road surfaces. Help us keep up the good work. Find out more at cartridges.planetark.org.
1 in 5 of us are affected.
10% of us will have at least one.
And the numbers double for Indigenous Australians.
Just as quick as a click of your fingers, it can happen to anyone at any time.
What would you do if someone close to you was having a seizure?
Imagine if it was your child.
My brother has it. My sister has it.
I have it.
I have it too.
You're not alone.
You're not different. And you have a bright future ahead of you.
So click for kids!
I'm Amy Lee, and I'm part of it.
Northern Access Television will turn 30 in 2020. We are planning a celebration night with a book and a special TV show about our history. If you're a past member or a volunteer of NAT, we would love to hear from you. For more details, visit the website nat30years.info and find out how you can help celebrate 30 years of media for the community. The 30th anniversary of Northern Access Television. Let's celebrate in 2020.
Welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity. And today we're speaking with Anna Halifoff, and she's a lecturer in the Sociology of Religion at Deakin University. She's also an advisor to the Faith Community Council of Victoria. Anna, before the break, we were coming close to addressing the difference between SRI and the process of actual education in religion. How is that progressing?
Okay, so as I mentioned before the break, in the context of Australia and specifically Victoria, there wasn't an allowance to teach about religions, diverse religions, within the actual curriculum because of the secular clause in the Education Act when schools were established in Victoria. Mm-hmm. Now, in 2006, there was a review of the curriculum, and from 2006 there was a provision for what is called GRE, General Religions Education. So from 2006 onwards, and you can see 2006, by then it's way after the events of September 11, 2001, which catapulted religion into the media and into the public mind. Right. So there was a lot of negative coverage about religion taking place at that time, but there was also a lot of positive religious activities happening in Australia and a really significant rise in the interfaith movement, in the multi-faith movement post 9/11. So by 2006, issues pertaining to religion are much more in the mind of state actors. And so there's an understanding that to develop a greater sense of religious literacy and interreligious harmony, there needs to be some knowledge about religion, and that kind of knowledge about religion would not contravene secular principles as long as it was evenly taught, as long as students learn about all religious faiths. So from 2006 that becomes possible in Victorian schools. However, in terms of real funding and support for these initiatives, other than at the year 11 and 12 in the higher levels of school, there really haven't been to this date any significant initiatives to teach GRE in government schools. Right. In faith-based schools, however, there have been some wonderful programs developed and run about diverse religions and also beliefs. So I think the other thing that starts happening in the mid-2000s is a realisation that we're not just living in a multi-faith society, but that also, as I said earlier, we have a rising number of people who do not believe in religion. But they have still a real interest in ethics and in diverse worldviews and ways of thinking about the big questions of life that many of the religions answer. So what we're using the terminology, which is also used internationally, rather than calling this education about diverse religions GRE, we're calling it education about religions and beliefs, so that it could be inclusive of both religious and non-religious perspectives. And so ERB is the acronym that we're currently using.
And hanging off the end of that, of course, would be around the beliefs is be cultural implications as well, wouldn't there be?
Certainly. So religion and culture are deeply intertwined. And so when we're talking, let's say in Victoria, in the context of multicultural and citizenship education, religion can feature within that as part of culture as well.
Yes.
So you have the sense that we do have research that demonstrates that some of the programs that have been run in faith-based schools, or there are also programs that have been developed and have been run by interfaith organisations, and they've been implemented in faith-based schools and in a small number of government schools, that those programs can be really effective in teaching about religious diversity and in fostering a sense of understanding among diverse religions in Australia.
I realise that you're specialising in Victoria. Can you give a bit of an idea of the actual diversity, the number of religions represented, and a sort of a percentile hierarchy? I don't mean in fact by fact, but just a general overview.
Not really off the top of my head. But if you look at the Australian census data, the data that came out in 2011, you can get those statistics there. But basically in Australia, the largest religious group are Christians.
Yes.
The second largest group, if you put the different diverse sort of groups together, is Buddhists.
Yes.
And then we have a significant number of Muslims.
Yes.
One of the fastest growing religions, or perhaps even the fastest growing, is Hinduism. And then again, we have an increasing number of people, as I said before, of non-religious affiliation.
Yes. Yes, the non-religious affiliation is a group which needs to be caught in the net, as you said, and by introducing the culture and beliefs that allows that to happen. With the growth in Hinduism, is that because, do you think that's because of migration, or is it just a general community interest in the principles of Hinduism?
Definitely the large number of Buddhists and Hindus and also Muslims in Australia, a lot of that it's largely attributed to migration.
Yes.
There have also been quite a significant number of people converting to Buddhism and also Islam in Australia.
Yes. Yes,
but it's really, by and large, those high figures is also linked with our proximity to Asia, the geographical proximity.
So with this ERB, or your acronym was what again?
Yeah, ERB, Education About Religions and Beliefs.
I got that right. What's the sort of the model for that? Is there a model which, you said it's not taken up much at this point in government schools. Is there a model which is available for them to take up, or is it perhaps the fact they need to create it that they're not doing it?
There is a document that came out of Europe called the Toledo Guiding Principles on Education About Religions and Beliefs.
Yes.
And many of us have looked at that as a guide for the type of programs that we could introduce in Australia. There we can learn quite a bit from what's happening in the United Kingdom, and also there's a relatively new program that's been introduced in Canada, in Montreal, where they're teaching about culture, ethics and religion. So there are a number of programs internationally we can look at and learn from.
And we'll look at those after the break,
okay,
because we're running up to that.
Okay.
We'll be back in a moment.
We've all seen this one time or another. We may even have done it ourselves. But inhaling balloon gas is very dangerous and can be fatal. The helium in balloon gas acts as an asphyxiant, and when you inhale, it displaces the oxygen in your lungs. Balloon gas is safe in balloons and when you release it in a well-ventilated area and in a safe manner. So the next time you see some sucker about to inhale balloon gas, or you think it's going to be a laugh, stop and be gas-wise.
Locals here made the shocking discovery this morning. Police have sealed off the entire beach.
There is a killer. One of the worst killers in Australia. Skin cancer. Every year, skin cancer kills over 1,700 Australians. Don't be a victim. This summer, protect yourself against skin cancer.
My name is Logan. I'm 12 years old and I have Duchenne muscular dystrophy. My muscles are degenerating and I was put into a wheelchair 2 years ago. Soon I won't be able to move at all. The majority of people affected will not live past their 20s, including me. So we need your support to improve our quality of life until a cure is found.
Transports of Distant Delight is a mixed selection of transportation pictures from here and there and almost everywhere, but not quite. Some quirky, some mundane, some from the past, perhaps reflecting a transit system that has vanished into history, and some from thriving transport entities that continue to endure despite the constant pressures from the all-pervasive motorcar. Enjoy.
Welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and today we're speaking with Anna Halifoff. She's a lecturer in Sociology of Religion at Deakin University, and she's also an academic advisor to the Faith Community Council of Victoria. And we've been talking about ERB. The comparison between the outcomes from SRI in ERB, could you address that? Is there some studies on that?
Special religious instruction provides religious instruction into a particular faith. So what happens is parents get to choose, so in primary schools largely SRI is taught, and so parents get to choose which SRI options their child would elect to take. So a child would be put either in a Christian class or a Jewish class or a Hindu class, or someone could choose not to take an SRI option at all, and they would be given an alternative activity to do. So the outcomes of those programs would be to learn about that particular religious tradition and how that would apply to that person and family's life and community life. Now, general religions education, or what we're calling education about religions and beliefs, would ideally provide you with an education about all diverse faith traditions. And the outcomes of that would be to help young people to become more religiously literate or interreligiously literate. So we live in an increasingly globalised world. We talked about the increasing religious diversity of the society that we live in, but also a lot of young people are going to go and live and work overseas. They're going to work in situations there and also here in Australia where they're going to have to be mindful about different people's religions and beliefs, and they're going to have a sort of basic knowledge about that. The other benefit potentially of ERB programs is that there is a lot of research to suggest that there have been quite significant negative media depictions of religions, and especially religions such as Islam post 9/11. And so this has led to a fear of Islam, also a fear of immigrants sometimes and refugees in Australia. So I think it's also really important that the education system, the government education system, can provide a better education really about these diverse cultures and religions, in this case specifically, to counter some of those negative stereotypes. The final thing is, it's not just about teaching about positive aspects of religion. It's also a critical education about religion. We know that education about diverse religions can help increase this interreligious literacy or understanding. There's been some good research done by Warwick University in the UK about interreligious education programs in the UK that do seem to demonstrate that it can help with positive community relations in the real world and outside of the classroom. So I guess in the context of this program, Harmony and Diversity, we're hoping that programs, ERB programs, could increase interreligious harmony in Australia.
Yes. Yes, that's as you say, post 9/11, that's been particularly essential. But you only need to look at news programs to realise that religious issues of different religions are arising all over the place.
Yes.
Myanmar at the moment, and the Middle East all the time, of course.
Yes.
With minority religions being persecuted and etc. So it's a matter of the battle of the ignorance, really, isn't it?
Exactly. And so if ignorance, and I completely agree with you, if ignorance is the problem, then the only antidote to ignorance is education.
Yes. I was just, on the SRI issue, I was just wondering whether you've got any knowledge about whether the SRI classes are attended by people who are already firmly in that religion, or do they sometimes have an influence where someone can go and attend those classes and actually see the inside workings of a particular religion?
We really have very little research on SRI. I mean, my research has been particularly around policy and a historical kind of examination of what's been going on, some research on media discourses. But to the best of my knowledge, there hasn't been a comprehensive study done in terms of the young people themselves that are participating in SRI classes and what effect that has on them. I think it's an excellent question to ask. Our concerns, or my concerns, with SRI programs are that in a diverse society like Australia, the problem is dividing children up into these groups and only getting one perspective doesn't necessarily answer that problem of how to counter this ignorance we have in our society about religion. Having said that, I think what my research and other experts in this field, what our research does indicate is that it's probably time to review SRI again, as we did in the 1970s, as was done in the so-called Russell Report. And I think that a lot of community members have a real attachment and, to their SRI programs. And I think their voices need to be heard in this debate as well. It may be in Australia that eventually SRI will shift to a more general religious education or ERB program, but it may also be that SRI remains and is complemented by ERB programs. As long as SRI can adapt and become more equitable, so that different groups are also provided with the same opportunities to teach in schools. So we can actually provide more SRI options.
It's a basic of break down the walls. It's the cultural implications as well. There's a break down the walls, so there's a cross flow of information, understanding, and when that which leads to compassion and just a general intellectual awareness of the whole social issue. And social issues have come to a close. The time has run out.
Okay.
Anna, thank you so much. And it's a very interesting topic. And if at some later stage we perhaps wanted to explore it a bit more, would you be happy to do that?
Certainly.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back next week.
Baha'u'llah, Shanti Om, Allahu
If you choose to drive when overtired,
You could ruin lives.
someone else's, your family's, or your own,
Choose a power nap instead.
the right choice could save someone's life.
Proud supporters of safety in our community.
GMCU and Southern Cross Austereo.
Live streamed from Echuca each week, this is MELfeed Video, a different sort of TV.
The following program carries an MA classification and may contain adult themes and coarse language. MELfeed Video advises that it is suitable for viewers aged 15 plus.
I'd like to do this poem because I don't usually do it. It's sort of set in France, and it has drug references rather like young Brett's poem did, but it's about somebody else. And it's called For Laurence. She bred wolves in the hills above Tournon, a wine town. She'd done her days in court, spent her time in jail. Momo, the Algerian, was long gone. Gilles, the cook, has his grandma's house now, maybe locked up again. Good with fruit trees, but too many flick knives. Milan, that was a cold stone prison. Claude still laughs like a duck, quack, quack. Maurice ran the bar normal, he died of AIDS. She looked like David Bowie round the time of Diamond Dogs. That quiff and long arms built better walls than men did. 3 packets of neocodeine, 10 francs each can get you off. The pharmacists know the game, but say, bonjour, madame, if you got the front. Her laughter had a gurgle. Maybe she laughed too much. Started with German shepherds, one called Socrate. They get weak in the back as they get older. It's her and wolves now. The paysans sure don't understand her. Her and the wolves. She chucked the boyfriend. No more city guys in leather coats or country jerkins. She can't drink her liver, but lopes the rooms, redecorates. The animals obey her, want to kill the stranger. Their eyes are blue like ice. Her fur is greyer, still laughs. Somewhere in the middle of France, the cold of the mountain rolls down. Bowie's still a pin-up, wearing leopard skin clothes. She clicks her fingers, builds a fire. The wolves settle. Over the tree line, the moon rises. Leopard skin girls wore communion dresses, once dreamers of the absolute. Thank you.
I do translations of Russian poetry. I also do original work. And a lady who comes here often told me that she loved what she called the black and fluorescent red of Russian poetry. So I'm going to do a translation of a fluorescent red poem, and then a translation of a black poem, and then an original that is both. So first, the red one. Your fabulous enunciation, hot whistling of the bird of prey, create a true representation of silken eyelashes, I say. Why, and the hat has fallen, what, I'm asking you, and far away the leaves are calling, we live upon this planet too. So let them say that love is flighty, flightier 100 times is death. The soul is striving still and mighty, our lips fly toward it with each breath. And in your whisper, so much silk, and so much air, and so much light, that as if blinded, we both drink the sunless brew of windy night. This is the red one. Here's the black one. I still can weigh the word, and still, the first one verse I do repeat. You dressed the table for the 6th, but 7th one you did forget. It is not merry for the guests, idle is pitcher of crystal. Sad are they all, sad are you too, but saddest is the one uncalled. It is not merry and not light, on faces are the streams of rain. How could you over such a table forget the seventh one? How could you dare not understand, besides the father, daughter, girl, besides the mother, son, and friend, the 7th, the time in this world you dressed the table for the 6th, but with 6 the world did not die, more than the universe at peace, more than that scarecrow with yours, mine, shy just like a thief, and never touching but a soul. Between the silverware unmade, I sit a 7th one, uncalled. At once I overthrew the glass, and all that thirsted to be poured, all salt from eyes, all blood from wounds, from tablecloth on the floorboards, and there's no dawning, no parting. Broken his spell, wakes up the home, like death unto the wedding feast. I'm life that to dinner have come, and I still scold for nobody, no husband, father, son, or friend. You dressed the table for 6 souls, did not sit me upon the end.
I thought I'd try something different. This one rhymes.
Way to go. My God.
When I grow up, I want to be as strong as gum tree boughs, as peaceful as a paddock filled with gently grazing cows. I want to be as free as dust, carried on the breeze, and as unique as rock pools, revealed when the tide recedes. I want to be warm and safe and bright, like a fire in the hearth, and I want to have direction, like a secret winding path. I want to be as reliable as the magpie's song at dawn, and as pretty as each warbled note, ringing clearly through the morn. I want to feel the sun above and feel the earth below. I want all the possibility of an endless winding road. I want to be a mystery, fertile like the forest floor, and I want to have the passion of a distant rumbling storm. I want the wind to catch my hair and brush against my cheek. I want the tranquil nature of the slowly winding creek. I want to be as tall as mountains when the mist begins to clear, and I want to be as startling as the bright canola fields. When I grow up, I want to keep on growing like the grain, be as welcoming as an open door, and as welcome as the rain.
Behind your favourite team, there's another team. At all levels, in all codes, sports trainers are working to make sport safer. Sports trainers learn injury prevention techniques from doctors and other health professionals so they can provide the right first aid when the going gets tough. If your team could do with a sports trainer, maybe it's time you got a little closer to the action. Find out how you can become a sports trainer. Sports Medicine Australia, providing the team behind the team.
Joy, well-being, community, inclusion.
Special Olympics is a global movement for people with an intellectual disability, creating a world of inclusion and community through sport, where every person is accepted and welcomed, regardless of ability. One athlete, one volunteer, one family member at a time, helping to make the world a better place. Join the inclusion revolution by supporting Special Olympics.
And choose to include.
We reckon one of the most powerful things in the world is this sausage, because a sausage can do just about anything. It helps people to walk, see and hear, supports families after fire, drought and flood, and even helps plant trees in our community. Our sausages are working to cure cancer, helping farmers in tough times, and connecting people who are new to a community. And at the same time that they're doing all that, they're nurturing the leaders of tomorrow while building friendships that last a lifetime. Yep, these humble sausages are more powerful than you can believe. They're working wonders in our community. And at Lions, so can you. Lions Australia, we serve more than sausages.
If you choose to drive when overtired,
you could ruin lives.
Someone else's, your family's, or your own.
Choose a power nap instead.
The right choice could save someone's life.
Proud supporters of safety in our community.
GMCU and Southern Cross Austereo.
Okay, it's called Child of 1851.
Modern, modern, everywhere I look.
Sometimes with the rains, it looks just like home, which was none too tidy either.
It's like the Emperor's new clothes every day of the week.
The crop failed, I sold the horse, but with the rains...
The colours for the moment are black, beige and silver, a mirror for secret depression.
Paddy came over last night and drank my whiskey. He gets so mad, I grow afraid.
Jonathan Dark's body failed and he died in Adelaide. That's what I heard.
The kangaroos up the back paddock disappeared into the tree line. Mother and father, if you could see this country.
We keep lecturing each other about what Australia is, as if we didn't know it already.
Mary came out to visit on Mr. Cullinan's dray, and she cooked scones in the ashes of the fireplace. Next year, a cow, milk with the tea.
The poet won an Oz Council grant to stay in the ghost houses of Australia, when there are no ghosts except for the ones that exist in our heads.
Walked into town carrying my shoes to register for a water carrier's licence. Raise my hat to Mr. Smith.
Refused to talk about arts practice. Refused to do a PhD about arts practice. Refused to wear black.
Sweeney's Creek flooded. Silly Paddy had chopped down all the trees. Good soil washed away. Golden wattle, a winter flower. It smells waxy and strange.
I love MasterChef. It's a vindication of reality TV, zooming in on ordinary people just a bit better than ourselves. God, how over the last 10 years the better sort of person has hated reality TV.
The illustrated papers didn't arrive. Doc Grant rode out and delivered The Houlihan Boy, stillborn. Since buying the Jersey cow, Daisy, have been hand-feeding a poddy calf.
Dreadlocks and tattoos that start at our necks and right down. Is this the best we can do at self-expression?
Shot 2 wood ducks. Good eating.
Sunday drive. We drove up the back road and disappeared into the country behind the country. Magic mushrooms turn blue.
2 Afghan spice merchants arrived late today, hot and dusty, but couldn't take the chicken we offered them. Killed the wrong way. Very polite.
The tram driver stopped the tram and told the glue sniffers to get off. Everyone looked embarrassed.
The grass this morning was starry in the frost. It was as cold as the year I left. The wood here makes grand fires.
They say, believe in global warming, but it doesn't stop them flying to Thailand. It doesn't stop them flying to Coolangatta on Jetstar. Steve did a reading in Canberra last weekend.
It was a grand send-off for Mrs. O'Callaghan last weekend. Father O'Flaherty didn't know where to put his feet beside the grave. All the boys are fools. Then there's Mary.
Another dinner party for vegetarians. Fried halloumi in a warm salad. Yum! But what about roast chicken? What about all the fish in the sea eating each other? But then I think, don't bother. I'm drowning in compassion.
We chopped down 2 trees, hand adds timber for the barn. Young Billy almost chopped his thumb off. 3 dead lambs and 1 dead sheep, I eaten out by crows. The more I deal with sheep, the more I think how stupid they are.
Driving down the road today in the small car, I kept up the pace, but the 4-wheel behind just had to pass. Driver had a bald head.
At the Hibernian ball, made sure I was on Mary's dance card. We danced the Pride of Erin. I wore the suit I bought from Mrs. O'Callaghan's funeral. In the supper room, we ate oyster soup and sherry trifle. Paddy McHugh was more drunk than usual. Didn't raise my glass to Queen Victoria.
Blog site. Does Julia Gillard represent a new paradigm of non-specific gender politics? Isn't feminism supposed to be better? Did the mining companies hijack the so-called democratic process?
Sometimes the new country is like the old country, but with gum trees. Hired a contractor to build stone walls. The north wind this February, last of the tomatoes died.
Black Saturday. Rescue services are fearful but organised. Sunday morning TV. A helicopter rides across Marysville. Silver roofs. Black, silver, black. silver, black.
I ride across to Mary's place on the horse I've called Silver, ask her to marry me, a bouquet of lily of the valley, pulled from this earth I've been forced into.
We used to be buried. The cemeteries are out there, angel statues. Then we've been cremated, a puff of smoke. Now they're talking about dissolving us in chemicals, a quick dissolve.
She said yes. She's got Chinese eyes, an old Irish thing before the Gaels arrived. She's bringing a cupboard full of linen.
Jennifer Compton's knitting me a new scarf. She knitted Les Murray's jumper on cigarettes and caffeine. Out the back of the Dan O'Connell Hotel, we all talk shit. The fire smokes. The chicken parma looks better than it tastes. The fiddlers fiddle. No one listens.
Thank you.
RSPCA, for all creatures, great and small.
To every child's development, an important message from the Australian Toy Association.
I'm going to do an old poem because I've tried for 20 years to get it published in magazines. I've been lucky, but this one I could never get published, and I finally cracked in a very obscure Canadian/Alaskan magazine this week. Probably the town has a population of 50 or something, but anyway. There's a little story to this poem. I was living in a rooming house in South Yarra, and a beautiful girl was living there, and all these blokes are jealous, and they put poems underneath her door and signed my name, and 2 weeks later I ended up at Royal Park Mental Institution. And I appealed because I didn't want to be there, so I had to talk in front of 12 doctors, and one of the doctors said, "You're depressed." And I said, "Well, I'm a writer, I'm supposed to be depressed." And they said, "If you're a writer, do a poem." So there on that spot I had to do a poem, and this is the one I did. Larry was a lion, a rough and ready, tough and heady, mean and lean, take no crap from any one lion. Larry was a lion who thought he was a zebra. I think I'm a zebra, therefore I must be a zebra. Larry quit the prowl, no more howling, no more growling for this little zebra. Then along came a hunter who thought he was a hunter and killed every lion in Africa except Larry, who was too busy acting like a zebra. and there's a moral in there, but don't ask me to explain it. And then when I finished, the doctor said, well, you better explain it. And I rolled my eyes, fuck. And so I said, well, I used to be a lion, I used to lead a violent life, but now I'm an artist. And the very next day they let me out. Thank you.
This is called The Perfect Muse. And I wrote this the other day, and I was on Brunswick Street, and a lady strutted by with her geometry, and I wrote this poem called The Perfect Muse. So it's new, so just bear with me. Come along for the erratic ride that it is. Is that it? Sorry, I'm done, but I'll just do one more. Sorry, I'm not done at all. I'm lying. Okay. The Perfect Muse. She is red and black, strutting, colours of attack cutting the white air with purposeful strides, her grey sky stare, her immaculate pride as tight as her ponytail. She slices the backdrop of winter, the pavement hails her heavy boots, pales beneath her geometry. She checks her reflection in silver spoons. She pays attention to the moon's cycles in hushed tones in her lover's ear, in booths, of cafes with pictures of Betty Page on the toilet door. The grey-blue landscape of her thoughts amidst rose-hued rooms, the chalk white of her face is a stunning composition against the ambient glow of Art Deco lamps in dens where the men all want her. Her boyfriend breathes her in. She stamps out all his questioning, decants his rants with a steel metal pitcher into little cups. She collects his sunken soggy butts and nicotine stains. All the unravelling threads from his brain, she simply ties them up in a neat bow and snips off the excess. How can she be so clear, so uncluttered? A place for all his baggage to fall, a place for him to unpack, and she attacks his fuzzy philosophy with mathematic eyes. And he cannot tell if she really is linear or if this is all a disguise. Does she carry around a wounded, tangled marionette? He wants to prick her to see if she bleeds red or to see if her blood is blue. He needs to prick her to see if she even has a womb, to press against her interior walls to find out if she's even a woman at all. The perfect muse, is she shallow? Is she deep? And afterwards he watches her sleep, projects images of himself onto her canvas skin and watches the reruns of his own home movie over and over again.
This is called a Hill of Beans in Dumfries. A sort of melancholy, rain setting in for eternity. Hyperborean gloom, the way clouds lie in hammocks, almost touching earth with their arses. Glistening cobblestones, slate roof slats. A crow becomes an oracle of things we can imagine. Its feathers glistening, the smooth shaft of its beak stabbing at insects. A cafe half full with people who have nowhere else to go. An old tramp counts cigarette butts with nicotine-stained fingers. The waitress hasn't the heart to ask him to leave. His odour is a fug of stale piss, dead skin, accumulated sweat. This is Dumfries, a small Scottish town that has history, if I could be bothered to look. Instead, I stir the dregs of the coffee cup, watch people with umbrellas through the ghost-smudged windows, wonder whether life is composed of thinking about what next to do, or whether what we do amounts to a hill of beans. Thank you very much.
This poem is kind of new, and it's called Rain. When it rains now, a road will always flood. Something has gone awry with the city's drainways and pipes. In traffic jams, we wait, forced patient, captive audience to drive time radio. I tune into the top rating show. There must be a reason why millions listen every day. They have a way with words, these larrikin boys. Call in with stories about cows and grandmothers, they say, and make each caller sound funny. They have radio sexy voices. No one sounds like that in real life. My rubber wipers slap at the glass, heater roar and accelerator pedal squeaks. Red cars glisten by the side of the road. Wish I was in the back seat, falling asleep, when the murmuring of adult voices used to make everything safe. Or my first boyfriend and I steaming the windows of his white Sigma with sweet lies about love. I'm in the driver's seat now and the journey demands concentration. It is dangerous to drift in weather like this. Slow travel and scattergun voices bring on bridge amnesia. Know I got across it somehow, but can't recall the details. I don't want to get lost. The safest thing may be to wind down the windows, let the rain blow in, and turn the radio off. Thanks.
There's a difference between forgetting something once and forgetting it many times. There's a difference between forgetfulness and dementia. Talk to someone who understands. Call the National Dementia Helpline on 1800 100 500.
Live streamed from Echuca each week, this is MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV.
Feeling a bit thirsty? Well, we're here at the Australian Wine Festival 2000. This only comes twice a year, so you're watching it here on 15 Fabulous Minutes.
A glass of wine. Yes, you may. Just stand in line.
Okay. Oh, that is good. What do I spit?
Suck air through it. Big noisy.
Already got your nose in the glass, smelling it as you drink.
Oh, wow. It's not about choosing the right wine. It's also about choosing the right glass. So there's many... No, hang on, I'll start again. It's not about choosing the right glass. No, that's not right. It's about choosing the right wine. No, that's not right. Okay, there's about over 8,000 wines to taste here today, and we're in the Victorian Yellow Valley section as a starter, and not a bad place to come. We're at the Yellow Valley Hills Stanchion Vineyard. Now, how old is your vineyard?
Oh, the vineyard itself? Yeah. Planted in the early 80s.
Early 80s?
Sorry, I beg your pardon?
So how long does it take to cultivate a really good grape then?
Oh, look, you get your best grapes, or you get the good grapes start to come any time after 7 years, I think.
7 years, so that's a big investment. You've just got to sit around, watch these grapes grow, prune, and do it for 7 years.
They're like children. You just have to treat them like children, you know.
So what are your best wines here?
Probably the best wine that we're producing at the moment is the Pinot Noir or the Cabernet, and our Chardonnay is excellent also. If you wanted to try any one of these, they're worth.
Sure. Now, what's the key? What's the secret of this? What do you put in it? Is it just the grape, or is it like the way it's your spices or the oak or
It's all of those things, and it's a lot of love as well, I think.
A lot of love, a touch of love in each bottle. Now, do I taste that love in the swallow technique?
No doubt.
Is that a part of the love technique that you must swallow?
Oh, look, I think that's imperative.
You're not a spit kind of guy yourself?
Certainly not, no.
No. All right. A wine of seduction. What's my wine of seduction? Including the staff here. I mean, gee. I think alcohol's the key to everything. Just get anyone drunk and you're laughing.
That's pretty much it. Why don't you try this Chardonnay? Right.
Now, what are the flavours I'm going to be experiencing here?
Look, this is a magnificent example of Yarra Valley Chardonnay. Some lovely cool climate fruit flavours in there.
So what am I looking for? When obviously I have no idea.
No idea?
I'll go to a supermarket and go, that bottle looks good, the picture's pretty. Okay. But obviously the colour is important.
Colour's very important. If you know the grape that you're actually dealing with, you should have an understanding of what the colour is going to give you in the
glass. What am I smelling here?
You'd be smelling Chardonnay.
Well, what's the top note?
On the top note is probably the butterscotchy sort of characteristic. There's some lovely fruity sort of character that's coming through, some white peach, those sorts of characters, some melon also, nice cool climate Chardonnay characters.
Brings me here today.
Apart from the wine, I guess.
Purely the wine and the enjoyment of being and seeing all of that Australia has to offer to the industry.
What are some of your favourite wines?
Look, we enjoy from wines from throughout Australia, particularly some from the smaller vineyards throughout Tasmania. It's probably our pick of the day. Brand game, but not represented here. Of course, some of the newer areas like Orange, Mudgee taking off, and of course some of the historical areas like the Hunter.
So what is so special about New South Wales wines? As a comparison to say something from Victoria or Queensland or so on?
Well, there's great wine being made throughout Australia, but this is the Orange region. Our characteristics are high altitude, so we get a mild growing season, cold nights, dry autumn. So we get a long ripening period, good natural acidity.
Is it harder to grow grapes in that environment, or is it better for the grape, really?
There's some benefits, there's some downsides.
What are the downsides? Frostbite.
Frost is probably the big problem. Wind can be a problem. Sometimes they're a bit slow to ripen, and you run the risk of getting kind of an early winter and getting rain at harvest.
So you can actually have a really bad year for wine, basically. If you're producing a wine and they go, that year is not a really good year.
No, 2000 vintage was a shocker. You know, it's just a nightmare.
So what do you do with it? Once you've produced like a 2000, thousands of bottles made in 2000, and you're going, this is the worst crop we've ever had. How do we get rid of it?
Well, to make a good wine, we had to reject like half of our grapes, just drop them on the ground, and you know,
that's a lot of a loss.
That's a huge loss. Yeah, I mean,
does that make the bottle more expensive because you have to compensate it, or do you have to wear the compensation and saying, well, this year we're not making much?
Yeah, you just got to wear the, you know, because I mean, if the wine's just average, even if it costs a fortune to make, people can't pay for a bad, they pay on the quality, not on the...
It goes on a reputation factor as well. Obviously, if you've got a name like obviously coming from Orange, good wine, it's got to stay that way. You got to keep your wines the better wines.
Yeah. So we're in that situation where our top labels, we may not produce a 2000 because the quality's not there. So
one drink too many here at the Yarra Valley stand. And what are you actually promoting today?
These are our Chandon cocktails. So this one here is our Chandon Brut with cassis, which is a black currant liqueur. And this one is our Chandon Brut with Maduri.
With Maduri. So it's got a nice, very yellow colour.
Yeah. And they're just a bit of fun. They're expanding the versatility of our wines.
So why a test tube and not a champagne glass?
Because it's the exact amount of a shot, so we're encouraging people to just have it in one go, and it's different.
So down the hatch. Yeah. Midori, huh? This is a new one?
Yeah, they're all new. They've just been launched in Sydney, and we're about to start serving them in the Greenpoint room.
Fantastic. And how's the launch going for something like this?
Good, really well. It was really good. It was just a media launch, so they're available in bars and restaurants, things like that. And soon, early January, it'll be launched in Melbourne.
What is it with cheese and wine that go so well together? What is it that?
I don't know, but traditionally they have always gone together, especially in France and Italy and Germany. I can't tell you.
Can't tell me. But what are you producing here? You actually produce cheeses from the Yarra Valley itself?
That's right. We're showcasing two cheeses today, our Mascarpone Real and our Persian Feta. Both of them are very popular cheeses. We call our feta Persian Feta because it's quite different from a Greek or a Bulgarian style feta. It's not marinated in brine for as long, and then we wash it and marinate it again in olive oil, fresh thyme, garlic, black pepper and bay leaves. So it's got a lot of flavour, heaps of flavour.
Well, we'll just give that one a try. It sounds delicious. And mascarpone, I love a little bit of cream to your big desserts with that one, basically. How long does something like this last for, this sort of cheese, basically?
Persian Feta in its tin unopened will last at least 2 months in your fridge. This one doesn't last as long. It really needs to be eaten within about 5 days.
Fantastic. Black cows, white cows, spotted cows?
Black and white.
Do you mix your cows?
Yeah. What are you suggesting? We should keep them apart?
Yeah, I don't know about mixing. It's like mixing red with white. It could be dangerous. Have you starting your child off quite young, are you?
Yeah, well, everyone's telling me to stick the dummy in the musket, but...
Do you think that works? Keeps them quiet because it's awfully quiet here.
Well, it's better me drinking it than feeding him.
Yeah? Oh, okay. Then what brings you here?
The wine, tasting the wine, and we're starting up a wholesale
winery.
Yeah.
Okay, so has it been really informational for you here?
Yeah, it's been great.
So you come all the way down from Sydney to Melbourne?
From Sydney to Adelaide, spend a couple of days in Adelaide to Melbourne.
To Melbourne, just doing the wine thing. And you're going to pick all the Victorian wines and take them to Sydney?
Absolutely, just the Victorian wine.
Just Victorian wine, thank you. Fine, what's so good about this wine?
Well, it's from the pointy end of the whole business. It's up the top there in the Adelaide Hills. So in the cool areas, you get wines with finer flavours and quite often, in good years, very good concentration. So we try to plant our grapes in the warmest spots in the coolest areas. In the hills above Adelaide, there's a fantastic array of vineyards and orchards and things like that.
So you can tell the difference geographically from where sort of grapes are grown? How important is that?
Well, it is very important. It's about finding the right soils in the right climate, and you can taste the difference between the different areas where the wines are produced.
Now, how old is your winery?
Our winery is about 15 years old.
15, so that's pretty good, pretty old.
Quite new in the wine industry terms, but for the region we're in, the Adelaide Hills, although it was a big region last century, this century it's only been, 2 centuries ago, in the 20th century, it wasn't until the late 1970s that vineyards were replanted again in the Adelaide Hills.
So how old does a vineyard have to be before you have to replant? How long does a grape last?
Wines are a bit like people. The older they get, they do it less, but they do it better. In Australia...
Are you speaking from personal experience, obviously, then, because I haven't got a clue what you're talking about. God forbid. Yeah.
So in Australia, we have vineyards. We don't have any, in parts of South Australia, Adelaide Hills, we don't have the vine disease phylloxera. So there's almost no limit to how old the vines can get. In fact, they can be 150 years old before they need replanting.
Really? So you get like one bottle out of a 150-year-old plant, really?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Squeezing that last drop of wine out of there. Now, do you actually do the old process of getting your feet in there and mushing them away?
We just hop in, swim around. It's fantastic.
Swim around?
Yeah.
Oh.
Look for the hot spots.
Explains for the red feet, you know. So what are you going to show me here this one looks... Now, what is that? That looks a rosé. So that's a mix of white and red.
No. It's actually just a red that we press off its skins very quickly, so it doesn't.
So it's a pinky colour.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have
a go.
I just love throw it out.
Okay, you know how to taste?
Yeah. Okay. Show me.
Give it a big
swirl.
Big swirl.
Yeah.
Big swirl. Big sniff. Okay. Then in the gob, but don't swallow. In the gob.
In the gob.
Swallow. Suck air through it. Big noisy.
Oh, I swallowed.
Yeah, well, it's all right.
Oops, I wasn't. There's 5 green bottles sitting on the wall.
Actually, I won't name him, but a friend of mine said he can remember coming to work here, but he can't actually remember getting the train home. So.
Yeah, I don't think I'll actually remember doing the whole show here by the end of it, but we'll see how we go.
And what are you doing here?
I come here for the ambience and the people.
And why the camera and the microphone?
I like to record the memory because I know after drinking so much today, I'll forget it.
And what percentage of the home video makers do you think actually watch their videos after returning home?
All my audience of Melbourne, actually. Lovely lady here looks a little bit dippy. Got a few dips here. This is like the wine filler, isn't it?
Yes,
Feeling a bit tipsy, need a dip.
Our pestos, our full range of pestos and dips here, we're selling them today.
Pestos are really popular. What is it with the trend of pestos that's going on at the moment?
Because they've got a strong, lovely flavour. And we've got a really super asparagus pesto, which is new on the market, which is...
So what's in that besides the obvious?
Asparagus.
And what else?
Nuts. Nuts.
So you're replacing the basil with the asparagus. Oh. So what kind of... Obviously you got different... a basil pesto, a dill pesto. Okay. That sounds interesting.
Coriander pesto, sun-dried tomatoes with chilli.
Oh, that's very strong. I like that. Very dill. You made a dill on that one, making that one, huh? Carrot and basil. The old classic. Basil pesto. Pine nuts?
Asparagus mousse. No, not pine nuts, no.
No? What's the nut?
Cashew nuts.
Cashew. Now that's also a trend, like pestos with pine nuts or cashews or walnuts or any nuts, really. How do you know what wine to get for what meal? For instance, I'm going to cook asparagus because I've got a lovely pesto now. What do I know? How do I know to get a certain wine that's going to complement that?
Well, you need a beautiful, due to the acidity in the asparagus, I will give you a wine which is fruit-driven, being a Riesling, that will complement it.
So is that the idea, you sort of match and change and go, okay, a bit woody, a bit fruity? Okay, it's going to be, don't go away. Like, where am I going to go? I'm getting free alcohol. Anyway.
Always match your food with your wine. And the fruitiness of the Shiraz and the flavours of the acidity will be beneficial to the asparagus.
Now, how do you know this? Is this years of experience of trying asparagus 100 million wines, or?
Exactly.
Yeah?
Exactly.
Okay. Oh, that is good. That's good. I see. Any of these good for using in cooking as well, like pouring it in, or not so much? These are more drinky.
I'm always of the belief that if you're going to cook with wine, it should be the wine you drink.
Oh, use the same. If you can not finish that bottle in the food. Well, there you go. There's munching away. How are you enjoying that?
Oh, it's lovely.
What are you going for?
The roasted capsicum.
I'm going to try that. There's the asparagus. Yeah, it is lovely, and it's really nice with a drop of the green vineyard Sauvignon Blanc.
Guys, highly recommended.
Yeah, highly recommended. Very sharp. I haven't used this glass. Oh, okay. That end. That's my mouth print there. So you can use that. Yeah.
In
asparagus.
The 90s. Mm-hmm.
And tell me what you think of the combination of that with the wine. Is it a winner?
We make a carrot.
Work well?
Very
Thank
well.
this man over here because he knows his stuff.
Oh.
There's 1,001,8,000 wines here to taste, and I think I'm halfway through them. But it's not about just the wine and choosing the right wine, but it's choosing the right glass as well. The appropriate glass. Now, obviously, there's a difference between a red glass and a white glass, correct? Show us the difference for all those out there who are totally clueless.
Okay. The whole reason of a wine-specific glass has been developed for each individual wine variety. So for red wine glasses, you predominantly have a larger wine glass with a larger bowl.
Why is that?
So you can swirl the red wine around, break up the molecules, enhance the aroma.
Okay, and you can't do that in a white?
Well,
Don't need
The
to.
white glasses are predominantly smaller, but you don't need to do that because they usually have such concentrated oak or fruit flavours that you don't need to really break them up and open them up as much. So
I love this shaped glass. This was probably one of the most fashionable glasses today.
A dessert wine glass or an aged champagne glass. Now for dessert wines, because they have such citrusy flavours as apricot and peach, you pick up the concentration of the flavours by, once again, a wide surface here, and then the funneling of the fumes and the aromas up here.
Do you think their design's sexy as well? Is a glass sexy?
It's very funky.
Funky. Not sexy, but funky. There's 4 green bottles sitting on the wall. I mean, really, I'd stick a candle in that and put it on the dining room table. Chocolate mousse. Oh, that'd be sick. No, that's just disgusting. Okay.
The reason you have a big glass for red wine is if you smell that out of that glass.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the same wine?
Yeah. So you can imagine breaking up that glass, the molecules, the surface area. It heightens the perception. It makes
that is really different. That's amazing. So it does play a huge role.
Absolutely. That's right. Now,
it's a shame we don't have smell-o-vision because that smells average. Same wine, different glass. Amazing bouquet in here.
And even if you taste
the flavour even differs. Get out of here. What do I spit?
Over there.
You got a pocket? Okay.
This is it. You've already got your nose in the glass, smelling it as you drink.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That is amazing. This is a test of all tests. Now, like I'm holding it up to my nose, I get a full half-minute whiff of that.
Absolutely.
So that's tantalising my taste buds already.
90% of what you're tasting is smell.
Yeah, it is too.
Because you've only got 4 basic tastes: salt, bitter, acid, and sweetness.
You sure it's the same wine?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, there you go. Get a big glass. The bigger, there is more is more. That's the noughties. Yeah, more is more for red. We have the glass polishing girls who have been sitting here all day. How's it been for you?
Great. It's changed my life.
It has? How many glasses have you been sitting here cleaning?
Thousands.
Thousands. Did you know there's over 30,000 people in here over 6 days?
Do you know there's over 40,000 glasses?
Over 40,000 glasses?
I heard it was 60,000 glasses.
No, I heard a rumour back there it was 80. Let's start one, huh?
Wow.
So you're here just to polish?
Yeah. And we're the face of the event. We're the first face that people see when they come in here. And
Or through this door anyway.
well, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
most important door.
That's the most important door. Gate 5.
Everyone goes there.
So come in here, you walk into the show, grab your free glass. Can I take this home?
No.
Oh. Whoops. That fell in there. WA Wines. Now, so what's so good about your wines?
It's good piss.
It's good piss. We like that. Now, what are you special? I noticed you got a lot of red here.
Yes, we have plenty of red.
And what is the difference between the making of a red and a white? Is there any difference?
The whites generally are made to drink now, and the reds generally are made to drink now and a little bit later.
So how long do you sit the red around and wait?
Depends on the quality of the red. The standard reds will sit for about 2 to 3 years. And
That's a basic. What's a house wine? House red is just a basic 3-year wait?
Depending on how much you want to pay for a house red. But generally, house red is ready to drink now. It's made quickly. It's soft. It hasn't got the body of the better wines.
Oh no! I hate it when they do that. Oh, after all that wine and the trickling of a fountain. Toilet. Where's the toilet? I need to go to the toilet. Man cannot live on wine alone. Help yourself to the bread, loves. I've got a little bit too much of a loaf. I don't get the wine and bread. What's the deal?
Well, you need the bread to soak up the wine.
Better give me 3 packets. Obviously, you guys have had a lot of drinking going on, isn't there?
We've got our Helga's bread here.
I got my Helga's bread too.
Where's yours?
I've stuffed it in my bag.
Where are you from?
Have you had a lot of drink? Did you just like meet each other here?
No.
Have you got red lipstick on, or is that because of the red wine?
It's because of the red wine.
I thought so, and you're wearing red lipstick too.
No,
Where'd you get that? I love that colour, Lippy. So are you enjoying it here, obviously?
It's unreal.
Do you find that people get more attractive the more drinking you do?
No.
You're saying I'm ugly?
No.
Do you know this guy? You sure? You just met here, didn't you?
No.
Yeah, I spilt wine on her. You see her red top?
A whole top.
And then she went, oh, that was great.
So I think you guys are going to go home and have a lot of fun, aren't you?
Yeah, maybe.
Is that why you come here?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I won't say it, but do you think alcohol's a good way of getting lucky?
No.
No, why not?
It helps.
It helps.
It does help.
Yeah, but do you find she just says lay there, but what about yourself? I mean, when you're pissed, you won't get it up.
Oh, no, I never had that problem.
No? Alcohol
Never.
makes you horny?
Oh, yeah. Shit,
Yeah? Yeah, obviously. I mean, look at these two lovebirds. But anyway, I want to know why we are recycling corks and why is it that important?
Recycling them so that they don't get thrown into landfill.
Is that what's been made of them?
No, what's being made of them is car gaskets and the flooring. We collect them, send them back to the cork recyclers, and then the money that we get from the corks is used to provide the Girl Guides with, first of all, it was tents for their various camps.
So now they've got their tents?
They've got their tents. Now they can apply to Guide Centre for what we call a cork grant.
I would never even think to keep the cork. So what am I doing with the cork? Who do I give it to?
The body shop is a good place to go.
Body shop?
All the body shops are set up as cork recyclers for us.
Fantastic. So next time, don't throw out your cork. Chuck it in a box, save it and give it to the body shop so we can help some good foundation. Oh, that's a big jug you got.
Don't ask me anything about wine. I only drink it.
You know what I love about wine? The more you drink, the gorgeous women look.
Oh, what are you saying? If you hadn't drunk so much, I wouldn't look
beautiful. Don't you think I'm good looking?
You just heard I'm getting married, so you can afford to do that. Oh, you're gorgeous.
You've had a lot of drink. You haven't
I've
had a lot. Oh, isn't she
the whole
great?
show, I've had 2 tastes of
Hello,
wine.
I have 2. Come here as well. Come on. Here's another beauty.
Sheena's gorgeous.
What brings?
The Amazon girl.
What brings you at the wine show?
The boyfriends.
The boyfriends? What, you're hunting for a boyfriend?
No. Unfortunately, they're in the wine industry.
I know. Well, I don't know. You can hear at a wine show. You mean you don't want to get a drunk, you get drink, you can have a look from in, hi, everybody looks great. What's your favourite wine?
I haven't drunk enough to think everyone looks great.
Really?
No, but...
Do you think wine's a good way of getting someone into bed?
Of course. Why does everyone drink it?
Why? I don't know. I mean, you tell me. Is that how you got your boyfriend? Okay, I'm here with Narelle, who's just magic. How can I talk and get this done at the same time? It's impossible. I tell you, I'm falling asleep. I like it hard. Like it like my wine. Good, strong bottle. Anyway, we're here at the Adelaide Hills. Ooh, actually the alcohol's kicking in on this one. There's 3 green bottles there on the wall. A wine maker. Now, what makes a winemaker make wine? I had to say that, and I said it without stopping.
It's a great mix of literally getting into it up to your elbows and science and a tiny bit of art and a bit of all those things. That's what makes it appealing.
What makes you get into it? What, you just do a course? Like you started off at a make your own beer kit in the supermarket and you thought I'd progress to wine? Or?
I'm sure a lot of winemakers do start that way. I was brought up near a winemaking region, and so I've always had wine as part of my life and part of my family. And so from there, yes, I actually had an early midlife crisis and changed from my other career and did go to university, got a degree.
When I was younger, my dad just took me to a rink because he had done speed skating, like, through his life.
I then started to get like more involved in skating. Like when you start skating, you go to just leagues and you start as a recreational skater, and then you build up to the state championships, national championships, and then like the stepping stone for Worlds is here at Oceanas. So hopefully next year we have more skaters going to Worlds. I just love like the feeling when you're just at your top speed and skating along with your friends, because you get some really good friends over the years that you skate, and everyone knows each other. It's just a good skating community to be in.
Went to a skating rink just up the road from my house, back in Adelaide. Went there for a session, got hooked on the thing when we were there and kept going out, and they asked us to come to a training session one night. Went there and been doing it ever since. You get in parking lots and you train through winter even when it's cold, but you're doing it because you're loving the sport, you know, and at the end of the day it comes down when you're racing and you're around the mates that you race with, that's where you want to be, you know.
I got into speed skating as a bit of cross training because I used to do a lot of professional half pipe. So I used to do a lot of tricks and so forth. So I got into speed as a bit of a cross train for that, because the physical demands, you need to be very fit and very strong to be able to speed skate. So it was a good crossover. I guess the cool thing for me was moving away from a subjective environment and just worrying about here's the start, here's the finish, and try and get there as fast as possible. And it was a bit of a refreshing environment for me. Everything sort of starts to slow down a little bit, and you're just waiting for that whistle or that gun to go off, and it's you feel like a curled spring ready to be unleashed.
You got to beat the other guy, you know. You're always trying to push to get harder and harder. Next one is you're trying to, get away from the pain in your legs and the rest of your body you're going through, especially after a long race. And then after that, it's just down to just pushing yourself to get to that line, and win the race.
Flow, the speed is really addictive, and once that starts to sort of come together, then it's like, oh wow, I want to do more of this, and it becomes really, really enjoyable. I guess the way I describe it to my buds is, I get to ride on really cool looking skates that have carbon fibre in them. As soon as you say carbon fibre, everyone starts to look.
Amount of training and diet and just general dedication separates like first place to fourth place. That's how close it is. So you have to be really dedicated to be the best. When you get your name called out on the Australian team, it's really good to hear, and it shows like all your hard work has paid off. In the future, I want to be in Europe skating on like the season called the World Inline Cup and just be the #1 world champion, because I've worked really hard over the years. World champion is my dream goal, and I really want to reach that.
It's just fun. You get out there, you get to go fast, do something different that no one else gets to do, and then you get older, you get better, you go overseas, you get to see the world, you travel and keep doing your sport, it's something you love doing.
Get active, get social, get on a roll. For more info, visit skateaustralia.org.au.
Stop! Hold it right there. Have you done your pool safety check? Maintain the barriers, check the gate, and never leave anything that can be climbed on near the fence. Have you brushed up on your CPR skills? And don't tempt kids with toys. Tidy up.
Is that all?
When kids are around the pool, keep watch. They need your attention all the time. Okay, in we go.
Download your free home pool safety checklist and help Royal Lifesaving make this weekend your home pool safety weekend.
Live streamed from Echuca each week, this is MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV. Live streamed from Echuca each week, MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV. Live streamed from Echuca each week, MELfeed Video, a different sort of TV.
Okay, Sarah, I'm going to order some pathology tests to see how everything's going.
Half the Australian population had a pathology test last year. That's you or someone you love. 100 tests are performed every minute, delivering vital medical information. From the moment you are born, your healthcare depends on pathology tests. 70% of medical decisions rely on information from pathology tests. Pathology is the engine room of healthcare. One small sample can reveal millions of insights all about you. Pathologists are your doctor's doctor. 25,000 people work to provide doctors with the answers they need to treat you. Australian pathology is world class. We may never meet you, but we see each of you as part of our family. Every minute, 23 Australians find out more about their health.
Good news, Sarah, the results show that everything's okay.
Pathology provides peace of mind.
I rely on Australian pathology.
Sign up online to support Australian pathology.
They say there's a chance I could die in a car crash, maybe even from heart disease, maybe even skin cancer.
I could die in a work-related accident, or I could die in a fight.
The fact is, the biggest cause of death for men in my age group is suicide.
Please don't let this happen to me.
You can do something. Lifeline believes that suicide is mostly preventable. Help us save lives. Find out what you can do at lifeline.org.au.
MELfeed Video is about to close operations for tonight, but we'll be back with you next Monday evening. In the meantime, here is a selection of programs that will be seen on our next scheduled web stream. You're welcome to visit our website at MELfeed.video for further details of this project. Until next time, from all of us here at MELfeed Video, we wish you a very good night.